Alright, so here we are with the second episode of Kyle is Famous. And I got two goals for this episode. The first one is I'm going to find out what that sewing machine's for. Okay? The second thing is I'm going to get just having a good, proper interview out of the way. Oh, by the way, and I did some looking. And, yeah. Kyle's Famous got 117 endings. And he's got a key on him. I don't know what that means. Like, two of them got a key on it. Kyle wasn't helpful. Alright. Alright. So, yeah. Alright. Okay, so here we go.
Kyle woke up. He is famous.
For waking up.
Kyle is host of the most popular talk show in recent memory, Stay Up Late with Kyle.
Because Kyle woke up. He's the first one to wake up.
Stay Up Late with Kyle has grown in popularity quickly in the last year, and the public has noticed.
Because he's famous. Because he's Kyle. And he woke up.
Inside has called Kyle a most excellent dumpy white man. Top Tech noted that Kyle is inspiring youth to explore STEM fields. Most other talk shows are dedicated to discussing Kyle and his personal details.
And how he wakes up.
Most online videos are best of clips taken from Kyle's latest broadcast. The eye of the world is upon Kyle. Tonight is Kyle's most important guest interview yet. Stay Up Late with Kyle will be featuring Rachel May. She is a kind and lovely philanthropist.
Huh.
She is dear to the hearts of many. This interview requires preparation. Kyle cracked his eyes open, knowing today is his last chance to prepare for the interview. Kyle has 30 hours left. He must choose his actions wisely.
So Kyle wakes up and interviews.
Kyle decided to take some time to choose the perfect outfit, knowing how important appearance is.
He's gonna get on a slick suit.
Kyle miraculously crammed his dumpy body into the suit. The chest pockets were filled with random knickknacks.
I want to know what the knickknacks are.
Kyle wrote down his first question.
Are you a mother?
Kyle wrote down his second question.
You got some diet tips?
Kyle wrote down his third question.
Yeah, what's a funny story?
Kyle wrote down his last question.
What's your guilty pleasure?
Kyle ripped his page of notes out of the notebook and got up from the desk.
Let's go down that hallway. Let's get the kitchen. Open that fridge.
Kyle opened the fridge, intending to find something to eat.
Let's
Kyle
have some
constructed
breakfast.
a breakfast of poached eggs and toast, along with a small fruit cup and grilled sausage. Kyle ate his breakfast slowly and thoughtfully, enjoying every bite.
Alright, got 10 hours left. We'll go to that tech store. Give a review of the free samples.
This phone, said Kyle, is several years old and has exposed wires coming out of the back. Kyle continued.
Well, you didn't grab it with
Also,
your
the
teeth.
screen has had issues ever since I used it to hammer nails into the wall.
He said hammer a nail into a wall.
Furthermore, when I submerge it in water, I get severely shocked until it runs out of battery.
He gets shocked over that battery
The
naturally.
attendant looked at Kyle, pursed his lips, and said nothing. Feeling he had made his argument, Kyle decided to leave.
Alright, let's get this interview.
Kyle hurried to the set. Sitting across from his host chair was a glamorous woman with an air of genuinity. As Kyle approached her, Rachel looked up and smiled. Good evening, Kyle, she said, looking him in the eyes. I've been looking forward to
Something ain't going to be
being
quite right with the
here."
interview. I know it.
Kyle responded.
Let's answer politely.
And I as well, Rachel, answered Kyle, extending his hand in greeting. You are a most welcome guest. After other mild exchanges of pleasantries, Kyle, a moment after seating, the studio lights
You hit my
brightened and the
finger, so I
cameras
just
clicked on.
skipped the reading.
Sorry.
Good evening, everyone, said Kyle, looking at the camera. Welcome back to Stay Up Late with Kyle. Tonight, I have the pleasure of interviewing the lovely Rachel May, who needs no more introduction. Kyle motioned to Rachel, who smiled and waved at the camera. Hello, Kyle, she said. I'm glad to be here.
Here it comes.
Well, I'm sure we'll have a lot to discuss, so we might as well dive right in, said Kyle. I'm very ready, said Rachel with a winning smile. Kyle produced the notes he had taken earlier.
I'm going to start off with, are you a mother?
Rachel, I and many others would love to know, are you a mother? Kyle looked up from his notes. Well, being a single woman with a career, she answered, that's not something that has crossed my mind. Rachel smiled genuinely at Kyle. Very reasonable indeed, said Kyle. He referenced his paper of questions. Kyle asked another question.
Okay, I'm going to go straight into the diet tips and then guilty pleasure.
Rachel, you manage to keep such a thin and healthy figure, said Kyle. What is your best diet tip? Well, a good diet starts with a plan, answered Rachel. And don't break it. Cheat days can turn into a habit. But, she continued, that doesn't mean a midnight snack here and there isn't allowed. She smiled.
Yeah, that's definitely the best order for those
Kyle
two.
looked at his flabby self, decided not to comment, and moved on. Kyle asked another question.
Okay, guilty pleasure's got to be next.
We all have one. What's your guilty pleasure? Ooh, well, that's an easy answer, said Rachel. Dipping pickles in chocolate sauce.
That's a guilty pleasure. Okay.
It might sound strange, but it's tangy and sweet at the same time. I eat it far too often. Rachel smiled sweetly. Kyle asked another question. You've been involved in a lot of different things, said Kyle. But what's your funniest story? Well, that's a great question, Kyle, said Rachel. I think the story I always remember is the first time I tried to make dinner for my family. In the
Here it
soup I
comes.
made, I swapped out the water with milk and tipped the whole jar of salt in the pot.
That's a lot of salt, especially if it's full.
While my family was sick from trying to eat it, I swept their things and locked myself in my room. Rachel laughed elegantly. Kyle decided to move on. After reading his final question, Kyle looked up from his paper. Well, Rachel, he said, I think that's all I was planning on asking you. If that's the case, Kyle, may I ask you something in return? Asked Rachel, smiling one more time. Do you prepare for your interviews in advance? Because you seem very together. Before Kyle could answer, the camera shut down. The broadcast was over.
I wanted that answer.
Kyle returned home knowing the interview had gone well. But as he lay in bed and drifted to sleep, he felt that perhaps something was still missing.
Kyle prepared very well. Unlocked more world options. Okay. Alright. Alright. Let's get that sewing machine. I want that sewing machine.
Kyle decided to stay put and wither away. Kyle withered successfully and died.
Well, shucks.
Kyle is now a ghost. This does not relieve him of his responsibilities.
Okay, he's a ghost. This is Kyle is famous. Ghosts normally can't handle... There's a rusty locker. There's a rusty locker. Next playthrough.
Kyle decided to take some time to choose the perfect outfit, knowing how important
Skunk
appearance
pasties.
is.
I'm doing the skunk pasties.
Kyle chose the pasties
Just
made
trust
of
me on
mashed
this.
skunk flesh. Getting the slimy garments to stay proved difficult, so Kyle opted to
This is gonna
stick
be
them
worth
to
it.
his body with hot glue.
It's going to be worth it. Alright, I'm going to scavenge.
Kyle quickly crouched down on the floor, realizing
Resources.
his immediate need for...
Next playthrough. We're going with bugs. Just
Kyle
trust me on
started
this.
to pick between the fuzz of his bedroom carpet, hoping to catch a stray beetle or two. Soon, he had a small handful of various insects, dead and alive.
But you're a ghost. How would you eat it? Save for later.
Kyle stashed the
It's gonna be
wiggling
worth
mass
it.
for later use.
Alright. Hallway. Locked door.
Kyle walked over to the strange door in the hallway, but found quickly that the door was locked from the inside.
Go through his ghost.
Kyle used his ghostly powers to walk straight through the door.
Supernatural artifact and a laser claymore? Okay. I'm going with the sewing machine.
Kyle walked over to the dilapidated sewing machine. Its box was only half removed.
Sew bug puppets. Alright. Ha. I knew Kyle was the kind of crazy person. Get them bugs and sew them into puppets. Alright.
Kyle started sewing dead bugs together to make small, actuated finger puppets.
So he's wearing skunk pasties, and he's now got bug puppets. This is going to be crazy.
Kyle crafted a bug puppet for each finger. He named them after guests he had previously interviewed on his show.
Alright, let's go back to the room now. Let's head back to the hallway. Alright. Got 8 hours left. I don't want him to pass. I don't want our boy Kyle to
Kyle
pass
opened
up.
the fridge, intending to find something to eat.
I'm actually having
Kyle
breakfast.
constructed a breakfast of poached eggs and toast, along with a small fruit cup and grilled sausage. Kyle ate his breakfast slowly and thoughtfully, enjoying every bite.
He's got 3 hours left. 2 hours left. How big is that kitchen for it to take an hour to leave the kitchen? Or I would sit at the desk and then have to run to the interview. That was worth it. I think.
Kyle hurried to the set. Per normal, he ceased to be a ghost before he arrived.
So that's a normal thing for Kyle. To be able to die and then have to go back to life to go to the... Okay.
Sitting across from his host chair was a glamorous woman with an air of genuinity. As Kyle approached her, Rachel looked up and smiled. "Good evening, Kyle," she said, looking him in the eyes. "I've been looking forward to being here."
He's wearing skunk pasties. He's just looking forward to be... Okay.
Kyle responded.
Spin circles.
Kyle stretched his arms wide, tilted his neck upwards, and... was interrupted by his producer telling him and Rachel that it was time to start the show.
Oh, come on, insist.
Kyle shoved his producer out of the way, spread his arms wide, and began to scream loudly. He began to rotate slowly, screaming throughout, lightly brushing his hands against the faces of Rachel and his producer. After several minutes, Kyle was finished. He slowly put his hands to his sides and smiled. "I'm ready," said Kyle. Rachel blinked at Kyle, shrugged, and walked over to her seat. A moment after seating, the studio lights brightened and the cameras clicked on.
He's very skunk-faced. He's going out to produce bug puppets.
Kyle slipped his bug puppets onto his fingers.
Here we go.
Hello, everybody, he said, wiggling the puppet he had named after himself. I'm Kyle.
And I'm Rachel!
Kyle screamed, waving a different finger.
You're so much better than me!
I know, Rachel. Kyle wiggled. He looked meaningfully at the human Rachel. Said one of Kyle's other puppets.
I'm super fat and Kyle interviewed me last week.
And I'm super irritating!
Said another finger.
And not very attractive!
Oh, man, Kyle.
Rachel stared at Kyle, incredibly disoriented. Kyle? She asked. What are those puppets made out of? Kyle thrust both hands at Rachel's face. Puppets pointed at her eyes. We aren't puppets, Rachel, he said, scrunching his fingers up and down. We're people!
What?
Rachel plucked her puppet off of Kyle's finger. Kyle! She exclaimed.
This is several dead bugs patched together!
Whoa!
Accept us, Rachel!
Said Kyle, scrunching.
We need acceptance!
Okay, this is getting out of hand.
Rachel stood and walked out of frame. In a moment, she returned with a bag. She plucked each puppet off of Kyle's hands and tossed them in the bag. Kyle, leave the bugs alone next time, she said. Rachel left the frame again, taking the bag of puppets along with her. Kyle, suddenly by himself, was unsure what to do. After a few moments of hemming and hawing, Kyle resorted to telling jokes for the remainder of the broadcast.
Okay.
Fans did not notice much difference between this and previous episodes.
Wait, so that's what Kyle normally does when he doesn't have a guest. Huh. That's an average episode. Huh. That was an average episode, apparently.
Okay.
Alright. I'm going to hit that desk drawer. Let's see what we can find out.
Kyle decided to take some time to choose the perfect outfit, knowing how important appearance is.
We're going to slick suit this again. Alright. Oh! A sword of change and a flashlight. And a small key. CDs. Okay, we're doing the sword of change
Kyle
first.
scooped up the change scattered around the desk drawer.
I wonder if the changes to get the batteries for the flashlight.
Kyle grabbed the flashlight, but after jiggling the switch, he found it was out of batteries.
Ah, see? I figured Kyle's the sort of guy did not have batteries for his flashlight. Alright, we're going to the kitchen. We're going to open the fridge.
Kyle opened the fridge, intending to find something to eat.
I don't want to have him waste time making breakfast. I'm going to just have him eat the condiments.
Kyle started to grab condiments from the fridge, squirting them into his mouth with both hands. Ketchup, horseradish, and mayonnaise entered Kyle's mouth at a rate that soon overwhelmed his ability to swallow.
That's not qualified as food.
Kyle spewed the excess condiment slurry across the kitchen, covering the furniture and walls. Kyle continued until all of the condiments had been emptied.
Alright. I knew that would save some time. Alright. Let's get out here and get some batteries.
Kyle counted out $1.98 in pennies and nickels and traded them for a small packet of batteries. Kyle crammed the batteries into his flashlight.
Alright, let's get out of here. Alright, let's move to the kitchen. Oops, I meant... Oh!
Kyle hurried to the set. Sitting across from his host chair was a glamorous woman with an air of genuinity.
Yeah, I know.
As Kyle approached her,
Why don't
Rachel
we get to
looked
keep
up
the
and
flashlight?
smiled.
How about I get to keep the
Good evening,
flashlight?
Kyle, she said, looking him in the eyes. I've been looking forward to being here. Kyle responded.
We're going to spin a scream in circles and run away,
Kyle
I think.
stretched his arms
I
wide,
can do that.
tilted his
Let's find
neck upwards, and was interrupted by his producer telling him and Rachel that it was time to start the show.
It's
Kyle
this.
shoved his producer out of the way, spread his arms wide, and began to scream loudly. He began to rotate slowly, screaming throughout, lightly brushing his hands against the faces of Rachel and his producer. After several minutes, Kyle was finished. He slowly put his hands to his sides and smiled. I'm ready, said Kyle. Rachel blinked at Kyle, shrugged, and walked over to her seat. A moment after,
Here we go.
the studio lights brightened and the
He got no
cameras
notes,
flicked
no
on.
nothing. Just got to change the flashlight.
Good evening, everyone, said Kyle, looking at the camera. Welcome back to Stay Up Late with
I
Kyle.
got nothing.
Tonight, I have the pleasure of interviewing the lovely Rachel May.
Wait,
Who needs
I
no
can-
more introduction.
Become Rachel May. Do it, Kyle.
However, said Kyle, suddenly dropping his voice, Rachel May is not sitting next to me. She is not new to this show. She did not walk in before me. In fact, said Kyle, I am Rachel May. Rachel looked at Kyle, confused, and silently mouthed the words,
You are who?
Kyle stood up quickly and threw his arm high above him, pointing upwards. I have never been, Kyle, he proclaimed. I have never been the host of the show Stay Up Late with Kyle. Kyle looked and pointed directly at the camera. I am here for but one reason, to interview myself. Kyle sat down in his chair and went to produce the notes he had taken earlier. It was then that Kyle remembered that he had not bothered to prepare any notes for the interview. Realizing he did not know how to handle this situation, Kyle began sweating profusely, but he continued. Firstly, he said, Is your name Kyle? No! Kyle slammed his fist down repeatedly. Then he stopped talking. A thick, uncomfortable silence hung over the studio. The silence did not end. The cameras continued to roll. Nobody moved or spoke. Eventually, Rachel got out of her chair and walked off screen. One by one, members of the crew followed suit. Eventually, Kyle was left alone in the studio, camera still running, silently sitting in frame. This episode of Stay Up Late with Kyle became the longest episode
What?
in television history.
Okay, that was confusing.
Kyle continued to sit in front of the camera all night and into the morning, wishing it would end. As evening fell again, the crew shuffled back in one by one, getting in places to film that day's episode. Kyle continued to sit motionless, cameras rolling, as the crew chatted about their days and got in position. Eventually, the crew officially started the next episode. Kyle was prompted to introduce himself again. Kyle had produced an incredibly artistic episode.
Huh? Kyle was artistic? He didn't get to keep the flashlight. Okay. I'm going to skip breakfast this time. Flashlight. Change.
Kyle? Kyle counted. Kyle.
Alright. Turn to the street. Apartment. Bedroom. Open the closet. Flashlight.
Kyle shined his flashlight into his moist, cave-like closet that had not seen light in years. After several minutes of searching around with the light, Kyle saw something unusual in the back.
Huh. What's he found?
There was a pile of strange items, including a small metal
Tape
box,
box
with a
for
large
later.
red button stamped with travel time.
Travel time? We're taking the travel time.
Kyle, bored of the situation, mashed the button. Hardly. The box hummed and shook. The outside metal grew hot and slowly curved in on itself. It was early in the morning. Kyle had gained several hours of preparation time.
Wait. He gained more time?
Kyle decided to take some time to choose the perfect outfit, knowing how it...
Slick suit.
Kyle miraculous...
Okay, I'm going to inspect the rusty locker. Set desk. Check drawer. Small key.
Kyle grabbed the small key he kept in his desk. Kyle knelt down and inspected the old, rusty container that had been in his closet for ages. It was locked, but had a blade-shaped slot in the top.
Okay.
Kyle quickly crouched down on the floor, realizing his immediate need for...
Resources. What's resources?
Kyle began to comb through the damp piles of filth and mold on his floor in search of helpful items. After finding and eating a few bits of crumbs and old cheese, Kyle found something much more important. Indeed, it was the corpse of Harry, the friend that had gone missing years ago while at Kyle's house. Kyle was glad to see him again, but was unsure of whether to interrupt such an important day with Harry business.
Interrupt it. Deal with Harry.
Kyle hoisted Harry onto his shoulder.
He's wearing a slick suit, and now he's going to be dealing with Harry.
Kyle began dragging Harry's body down the street, drawing many, many stairs. Kyle knew exactly where he needed to take Harry's corpse, on a lovely playdate, just the two of them. Kyle and Harry started at the arcade. Kyle used Harry's arms to operate the joysticks and push buttons.
Okay, he's having a play date.
After 5 or
with
6
corpse.
different games, the two friends had enough tickets for a single candy bar.
Okay.
They took their prize to the local park for eating. Kyle tried to feed some of the chocolate bar to Harry, but Harry seemed to not have an appetite. After eating, Kyle noticed a nearby playground. He dragged Harry over. Kyle tried to figure out a way to swing Harry onto the swing set, but, lacking the ability to grip, Harry kept falling out.
Okay.
Instead, Kyle started to lug Harry to the top of the slide and shove him down time and time again.
Kyle, Harry's having fun.
Kyle took Harry to the movies to see as many popular films as their pocket change allowed. Kyle had plenty of pocket change. He eagerly approached the ticket window. Kyle bought 2 tickets to A Love Romance. After getting inside, Kyle left Harry to go find a restroom. By the time Kyle had finished using the restroom, he had forgotten that he brought Harry along.
Aww.
Kyle watched A Love Romance by himself. Harry's corpse sat on a bench in the atrium. While Kyle was in the movie, a beautiful thing happened.
What's happening?
Harry's corpse, imbued with the power of friendship and love, was reanimated.
Harry came back to life. Okay.
Harry's old, rotten flesh gained color and life. His fingernails regrew. His missing eye came back. By the time the movie was over, Harry was able to greet Kyle with a large, friendly hug as his old self. Kyle was confused, but delighted to have his long-lost friend meet him on his way out of the theater. The two made plans to get drinks together and parted ways for the day. Kyle returned home, forgetting about the interview with Rachel.
Kyle helped a friend. Cool. Alright. Since I know I now can get more time, I know what I'm going to do. We're definitely doing the flashlight and sword chase. This time I'm going to bring the box. Sword of change. Flashlight.
Kyle grabbed.
Back to room. Leave apartment. Tech store. Just trust me on this. This is going to be good. Batteries.
Kyle counted.
Insert.
Kyle-
Exit. I hope this is going to be good. Apartment. Bedroom. Closet. Flashlight.
Kyle shined his flashlight into his moist, cave-like closet that had not seen light in years.
Alright.
After several minutes of searching around with the light, Kyle saw something unusual in the back. There was a pile of strange items, including a small metal box with a large red button stamped with Travel Time.
We'll take the
Kyle
box.
stashed the device for later use.
We gotta get some clothes.
Kyle decided.
Slick suit.
Kyle miraculously.
Back to room. Hallway. Kitchen. Fridge. Ah, okay. Hopefully this thing would be a problem.
Kyle hurried to the set. Sitting across from his host chair was a glamorous woman with an air of genuinity. As Kyle approached her, Rachel looked up and smiled. Good evening, Kyle, she said, looking him in the eyes. I've been looking forward to being here. Kyle responded. And I as well, Rachel, answered Kyle, extending his hand in greeting. You are a most welcome guest. After other mild exchanges of... A moment after seating, the studio lights brightened and the cameras clicked on.
Time travel with Rachel.
Good evening, everyone, said Kyle. Tonight, Rachel and I will time travel together. In one motion, Kyle grabbed Rachel's arm and pressed the red button on the time machine with his elbow. Kyle and Rachel were sent back to a time before human existence on Earth.
Whoa!
They were standing next to a large lake. There was a forest behind them, full of singing birds. Lizards were everywhere. Kyle, dear, said Rachel, stern but not angry, you can't just do things like that. Rachel began digging in the dirt, looking for small, smooth stones. I'm sorry, Rachel, said Kyle. I got a bit ahead of myself. Kyle began helping to look for stones. Well, it's okay, Kyle. I forgive you. Rachel took Kyle's stones and started to build a small stack on the ground. Kyle silently began sifting through the sand near the lake to find pure mud. Well, since we're here together, said Rachel, using nearby sticks to build a pyramid around the rocks. How are you? Oh, I'm fine, said Kyle, sticking pieces of shale together with the mud. I've been preparing for your interview all day. Rachel began to bundle nearby foliage into small power cells. Do you love being famous? She asked. Kyle used the bones from the dead fish ashore to start crafting some energy capacitors.
Wait. He's making He's using bones from dead fish to craft some energy capacitors. Okay.
That's an interesting question, Rachel, he answered. There's ups and downs. How about yourself? I think I'd love to be unknown with a loving family, said Rachel. Being so recognizable gets very lonely. Rachel started grabbing live birds as they flew by to make a nuclear reactor.
So, they're making power cells and a nuclear reactor.
I understand that incredibly well, said Kyle, extracting pure hydrogen from the lake using a reed siphon.
Okay. Are they... What are they... Wait, are they making a nuclear power plant?
There was a warm, understanding silence between them. After a few minutes, Kyle broke the silence.
Uh-huh.
Can you pass me the arc welder when you're done? I need to weld these bioreactive plates together. Soon the pair had constructed a janky but workable return time machine.
They built a time machine. From bones and water and... Okay.
As they climbed in, Rachel and Kyle looked at each other. Both knew they had bonded.
Uh-huh.
With the flick of a switch, the whir of an engine made out of beaver pelts, and some pops, the duo returned home. Later that evening, back at his apartment, Kyle thought about the time he had spent with Rachel.
Uh-huh.
He was glad they had gotten the chance to take a trip together.
Yeah, they took a trip, all right. Alright, now this time I'm going to do something different. I'm going to try to figure out what those CDs are for. There's also a small key in here, but I think... Wait a minute. CDs or small key? CDs or small key?
Kyle grabbed the small key he kept in his desk.
Alright, back to the room. Open the closet. We'll choose an outfit.
Kyle decided to take some time to choose the perfect outfit, knowing how important appearance is.
Jeans and swimming
Kyle
goggles.
decided on a fashion-forward, casual style.
Hallway. Kitchen. Pantry.
Kyle wanted to access the pantry, but found it was locked with a small keyhole.
Unlock.
The pantry door lock creaked as if it hadn't moved for years, but instead of an assortment of canned goods and grains, Kyle's pantry stored his massive amount of bottled lard.
Bottle of lard.
Kyle grabbed a bottle of lard and stashed it on his person for later use.
Open the fridge.
Kyle opened the fridge, intending to find something to eat.
Eat them condiments.
Kyle
I
started to
don't want
grab
to waste time
condiments
actually
from the
cooking.
fridge, squirting them into his mouth with both hands. Ketchup, horseradish, and mayonnaise entered Kyle's mouth at a rate that soon overwhelmed his ability to swallow. Kyle spewed the excess condiment slurry across the kitchen, covering the furniture and walls. Kyle continued until all of the condiments had been emptied.
Let's return to the hallway.
Kyle walked over to the strange door in the hallway, but found quickly that the door was locked from the inside.
Huh. You can't force... Okay. Can't open the door. Apparently you have to be a ghost to go through there. Alright. So, let's leave the apartment. I'm going to do this for Brent last bit of
Said
time.
Kyle, is several... Kyle continued. Also, the screen has had issues ever since I used it to hammer nails into the wall. Furthermore, when I submerge it in water, I get severely shocked until it runs out of battery. The attendant looked at Kyle, pursed his lips, and said nothing. Feeling he had made his argument, Kyle decided to leave.
And to go straight to a show.
Kyle hurried to the set. Sitting across from his host chair was a glamorous woman with an air of genuinity. As Kyle approached her, Rachel looked up and smiled. "Good evening, Kyle," she said, looking him in the eyes. "I've been looking forward to being here." Kyle responded.
I'm scream
Stretched his
spin.
arms wide, tilted his neck upwards, and was interrupted by his producer telling him and Rachel that it was time to start the show. Kyle shoved his producer out of the way, spread his arms wide, and began to scream loudly. He began to rotate slowly, screaming throughout, lightly brushing his hands against the faces of Rachel and his producer. After several minutes, Kyle was finished. He slowly put his hands to his sides and smiled. "I'm ready," said Kyle. Rachel blinked at Kyle, shrugged, and walked over to her seat. A moment after seating, the studio lights brightened and the cameras clicked on. "Good evening, everyone," said Kyle.
Here it
looking at the
comes.
camera. "Welcome back.
He's got lard.
Tonight, I have the pleasure of interviewing the lovely Rachel May, who needs no more introduction." Kyle motioned to Rachel, who smiled and waved at the camera. "Hello, Kyle," she said. "I'm glad to be here." "Well, I'm sure we'll have a lot to discuss, so we might as well dive right in," said Kyle.
And then he drinks the lard.
Dive right into this bottle, that is. Kyle pulled out his bottle of lard, bit the top off, and chugged it.
Wait, he didn't even open it. He just bit the top off it.
Kyle's body rejected the lard. He began to spew chunks of lard and digestive fluid in every direction. Everything within a 10-foot radius was immediately covered, including Rachel.
Wow.
Kyle continued to vomit. Rachel bravely fought to stay seated amidst the vomit, hoping to save the show from disaster. Unfortunately, Kyle's vomit had covered all of the cameras. There was no broadcast. Kyle finished spewing, eventually. The broadcast was not recoverable. All present were sent home to try again another day. As Kyle got home, he made a mental note to refill his lard supply.
Kyle consumed. Okay. Okay. All right. To check this drawer, let's grab them CDs. Take carnival music, festival music, dance music, classical music. Well, there's no kind of music for Kyle. Carnival music. Back to the room. What's a rusty locker?
Kyle knelt down and inspected the old, rusty container that had been in his closet for ages. It was locked, but had a blade-shaped slot in the top.
Blade-shaped lock. Huh. Okay. The apartment. Tech store.
This phone.
Okay. Nothing there. Kitchen. Open the fridge.
Kyle opened the fridge, intending to find something to eat.
Let's eat the crust off the fridge
Kyle
wall.
started scraping streaks of crud and spots of mold off of the walls of his fridge. After wadding it into a crusty, moist ball, Kyle popped it into his mouth and began to chew. Several minutes of crunching later, Kyle finished and swallowed the ball whole. It felt sticky in his stomach.
Okay, let's turn to the hallway. Bedroom.
Kyle decided to take some time to choose the perfect outfit, knowing how important appearance is. Kyle decided on a fashion...
Alright, yeah, I know. Fashion forward.
Kyle hurried to the set. Sitting across from his host chair was a glamorous woman with an air of genuinity.
Oh, with the old CD. What's he gonna do with the old
As Kyle
CD?
approached her, Rachel looked up and smiled. "Good evening, Kyle," she said, looking him in the eyes. "I've been looking forward to being here."
Okay.
Kyle responded.
I answer
"I
politely
as
this
well,
time.
Rachel," answered Kyle, extending his hand in greeting. "You are a most welcome guest."
Uh-huh.
After other mild exchanges
Still an
of
option for the
pleasantries,
CD.
Kyle and Rachel were prompted to take their places for the broadcast. A moment after seating, the studio lights brightened and the cameras clicked on. "Good evening, everyone," said Kyle, looking at the camera. "Welcome back to Stay Up Late with Kyle." Kyle vomited all of the horrible things he had eaten earlier onto the floor. Rachel looked at Kyle, concerned, gave a couple coughs, and decided to play it cool and keep the show running. Kyle stopped, then vomited again, then continued with a shaky voice.
Okay.
"Tonight, I have the pleasure of interviewing the lovely Rachel May, who
All right.
needs no more introduction."
Produce a
As
CD.
Rachel started to reply, Kyle clamped his hand over her mouth. "Hush," he said. "I need to do something before we can continue." Kyle removed the CD he had brought to the interview and placed it in a nearby player deck. The sound system kicked into action, piping Kyle's music throughout the studio. Rachel briefly listened, a blank expression on her face. Smiling, Kyle closed his eyes and enjoyed the music for a moment. Then, he spoke. "All right, now everything's ready. Let's begin." In a shock, Kyle realized he had never bothered to prepare any notes for the interview. Knowing he had the eyes of millions upon him, Kyle came up with a solution quickly.
Run away, Kyle.
Kyle ejected from his seat and ran out of the studio as quickly as possible. After it became apparent that Kyle was not coming back, the producer ended the episode and everyone went home.
Kyle ran by running away. It's a carnival music. Okay. Okay, I think I got an idea how to get the key for that lock. I'm gonna have him wither away.
To stay put and wither away. Kyle withered successfully and died. Kyle is now a ghost.
All right, I think I know where the key is for that one thing. We're gonna go downstairs. Check the locked door.
Kyle walked over to the strange door in the hallway, but found quickly that the door was locked from the... Kyle used his ghostly powers to walk straight through the door.
Claymore laser. I'm thinking it's Claymore laser.
Expecting a battle, Kyle grabbed the laser claymore.
Okay, back to the... Alright. Kitchen.
Kyle
Fridge.
opened the...
Eat the condiments.
Kyle started... Ketchup, horse...
Okay, good.
Kyle...
I don't want to pass. I don't want to risk him passing out. Okay. Turn to bedroom.
Kyle knelt
I
down
knew it!
and
Laser
inspected
Claymore was
the
for the
old
box.
rusty container that had been in his closet for
I
ages.
knew it!
It was locked, but had a blade-shaped slot in the top. Kyle took the laser claymore in his hand and slid it into the hole on top of the box. The box began to rumble slowly, but then it shook harder and harder.
Okay, what's going to happen?
Suddenly, with a snap, the box lid came loose.
Okay.
Kyle, giddy with excitement, grabbed the box to drag it into the light. With much sweating and pulling, Kyle slowly inched the box out of his closet. He began to giggle and drool.
Giggle and drool.
Soon, the box had been transported into the middle of the room.
Uh-huh.
Kyle clapped his hands together and gripped the lid on either side. With a tug, it tumbled to the floor, revealing the contents of the box.
What's in the box?
There was nothing inside.
What?!
Kyle was incredibly disappointed. This had been an opportunity for him, a way to find something new, a way to break up the routine. Suddenly, Kyle was struck with an unquenchable feeling of boredom about his life.
Uh-huh.
Kyle jumped to his feet and burst outside, hungry to find anything that could give his day a feeling of interest.
I think after all that, I'd be disappointed too.
Painfully, Kyle started grabbing anything he could reach, smashing it into his face to see what it could possibly do for him.
Wow, Kyle's gone nuts.
Rocks, benches, people, squirrels, and the ground itself fell into Kyle's grasp. But soon, his energy began to wane. Slowly, sadly, Kyle made his way back to his apartment, quietly grabbing small items off the ground and rubbing them against himself. Kyle slowly sank into his bed, as bored as when he had left earlier that day.
Huh.
He looked at the ceiling, feeling hollow. The day had been very hard.
Yeah. He died to get a laser claymore, to open a box, to find nothing. Yeah.
As he slowly fell asleep, Kyle wondered what he could possibly do tomorrow to inspire a new sense of interest in his life. He didn't know it then, but tomorrow, Kyle would try something new.
What? Kyle's going to try something new tomorrow? Unlocked. Kyle is a hot dog. Kyle is bored. Okay. Change jobs.
Kyle thought very carefully about the first move of his day.
Kyle's going to try being a hot dog salesman.
Kyle laid in bed for a moment, thinking about the day ahead. He would produce another episode of his long-running show. Yes. Kyle thought about making breakfast, the same breakfast he'd been making for the past 9 years.
Kyle's a hot dog.
Kyle thought about the clothes he would wear. They had not changed for a long time. Kyle waited for something new and interesting to enter his head. something fresh, something exciting.
Like relish.
Kyle continued to wait. Nothing came to mind. In a sudden moment of inspiration, Kyle threw his covers to the ground and stepped out of bed. Kyle had made a decision. Today would not be part of an old journey. Today would be the start of something new.
Put chili on his hot dog.
Kyle walked over to his desk and opened the middle drawer. He slowly removed an ancient, withered stick of meat.
Wait, withered, ancient piece of... Does that mean the hot dog's old? Like, really old? Okay, let's see where this goes.
Today, Kyle planned to make good on his childhood passion, the career he had abandoned to become a talk show host.
Alright.
Kyle looked caringly at the crusty hot dog in his hands. Then, he smiled. Then he bent his lips downwards and slowly sucked the hot dog into his mouth and down into his stomach. Kyle had become a hot dog vendor. He must now prepare for his first day running a hot dog stand.
Okay. Kyle's a hot dog. Choose an outfit.
Kyle decided to take some time to choose the perfect outfit.
Suit of armor, a slick suit, jeans, and goggles. Well, if he's going to be a hot dog, he needs a hot dog.
Hot dog suit, which he had made by stitching hot dogs together when he was a child.
Chew on suit, back to... What happens if he chews on suit?
Feeling fairly hungry, Kyle bent over and took a large bite out of his suit. He felt refreshed. It wasn't enough. Kyle continued to eat his clothing.
Oh no, Kyle, don't.
Soon, Kyle had eaten most of the suit. The chunks that were left were enough to act as clothes, but barely. Kyle felt satisfied. The hot dogs had nourished him greatly, functionally giving him more time in his day.
Huh? Alright. Let's go to the hallway. Locked door. The door is still locked?
Kyle walked over to the strange door in the hallway.
Hot dog magic.
That the door was locked from the inside.
Hot dog magic? Okay.
With a hum and a pop, Kyle used his massive knowledge of hot dog magic to change the door handle into a hot dog.
Uh-huh.
Kyle sucked the hot dog into his mouth, opened the door, and walked through.
Get laser claymore, check supernatural artifact. Oh, let's find a hot dog stand.
Kyle started looking around for
Let's see where this
anything he
goes.
could use to make a hot dog stand. Kyle rooted around the scattered boxes and loose items. He picked up buckets, pieces of wood, rusty nails, and bits of string. Soon, he had enough loose items to be reasonably sure of being able to craft a stand that wouldn't fall over.
Uh-huh. Marketing agency. Okay. Rummage in the trash.
Kyle began rummaging around in the trash can, looking for anything interesting. After picking through wrappers and cups, Kyle noticed there was a red button stuck to the bottom of the can.
A red button. Well, red button's only good for one thing. Pushing the buttons.
Kyle eagerly pressed the button. The wall above the trash can started shifting and spinning, eventually revealing a slab of pewter with an indent.
Slab of pewter with an indent.
The slab was thick and old. A plaque was embedded in the top, reading, "The slab embraces only a true weapon."
True. Well, I know what I needed. Turn to our apartment. Lock door.
Kyle walked
Hot dog magic.
with a hum and a...
Come on. Laser claymore.
Expecting a battle.
Come on, it's gotta be enough time. Gotta be enough time.
The slab was thick. Kyle inserted the laser claymore
Yes!
into the
There was enough time.
The claymore fit perfectly, snapping into place. Small metal hooks came out of all sides of the slab to hold it in place. With a pop, fizz, and a magical elf chuckle, a human-sized rainbow gateway to another dimension appeared.
This has gotten out of hand. How did Kyle's Famous end up traveling through a slab into a rainbow gateway?
The portal started sucking everything near it inwards, devouring chairs, trash cans, and Kyle himself. Kyle became part of a dizzying swirl. Lights and colors flashed all around him. He spun in circles rapidly. In a moment, Kyle fell into the Gummy Bear and Claymore land, where all matter is either gummy bears or claymores.
Okay. Let's keep this going.
Kyle was approached by a group of roaming gummy wasteland elves. Because of the harsh environment they lived in, the elves used their kin as blunt weapons to fend off attackers.
So, gummy bears use their kin to fend as blunt weapons to fend off attackers when it's gummy bears or claymores is the entire realm. Sure.
Kyle looked upon the elves and realized they must live in a depressed and war-torn culture.
Yeah, sounds that way.
And then, in a moment of pure empathy, Kyle decided to help the elves. Kyle grabbed the two nearest elves, one in each hand, and started to give them a talking to about war and its troubles. "Hello, you two," said Kyle. "I wish to give you a bit of advice."
Okay.
But before Kyle could say anything more, the ground started shifting and morphed into a gummy bear monster.
So Kyle's about to talk to the gummy bears, and then the ground morphed into a gummy bear monster.
Kyle chucked the elves he was holding at the monster to fend it off, but it was to no avail. The monster charged at Kyle, throwing elves to the sides as it sped forward. Kyle had no choice but to become a gummy bear monster himself.
So Kyle's going to become a gummy bear monster. Okay.
He started to cover himself in gummy bears and claymores. They stuck to his skin like meaningful, gooey hugs. After moments of a vicious, sticky flurry, Kyle was covered in the new world's material.
Okay.
Then, something wonderful happened.
Alright, so then something wonderful happens. Okay, what
Using
is
a
it?
combination of determination, elf magic, and method acting, Kyle truly transformed into a real gummy monster.
So Kyle's becoming a gummy bear monster. Okay.
But in his new form, Kyle was now not interested in fighting the other gummy monster. Kyle began swallowing every elf in sight in a wild, crazy rampage.
Okay, Kyle's now going to eat everything. Eat every elf in sight in the wild, crazy. Okay.
Over the next several hours, Kyle rampaged around the whole gummy world, eating every last elf whole.
Oh no. Wait a minute. Gummy bears, elves, claymores. What'd you do, Kyle?
Kyle
please.
had gifted
Oh,
the
no.
elves with a warm, nutritious new world to live in.
Oh no, Kyle.
Over time, the elves created a new society inside Kyle's stomach.
Wait.
There was no need
Still-
for war.
So they're inside. Wait, hold on a second. Let me get my head around this. Kyle ate all of the gummy bears, elves, and claymores. All of them, I think. And then they're making a new world inside his stomach. Okay.
They feasted on Kyle's stomach juices. Their culture entered a golden age. Eventually, Kyle turned back into a normal person and returned home. But the elves continued to live inside him.
Okay.
Kyle had saved a culture.
Unlock Kyle as Santa. Help the elves. Okay. Okay. Well. Okay. Thanks for watching. I gotta have to process this. This was a weird Kyle is Famous. All right, let's go to the main menu and see. Okay, endings. 16 out of 117, and I'm already confused. Hover over endings to. Okay. Okay. All right. Well, thanks for watching. Thanks for watching episode 2 of Kyle is Famous, and I think I'm adequately confused now. Peace. Okay, peace out. Oh man.